Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tea with Julia. My name is Julia Peyton-Jones, and this morning my guest is Tom Sachs. Sachs's genre-defying mixed media sculptures, often recreations of modern icons using everyday materials, show all of the work that goes into producing an object, a reversal of modernization's trend towards products with cleaner, simpler and more perfect edges. Sachs's sculptures are conspicuously handmade, lovingly cobbled together from plywood, resin, steel and ceramic. The scars and imperfections in the sculptures tell the story of how it came to be made and remove it from the realms of miraculous conception. His studio team of 10 functions as a teaching hospital or cult that worships plywood and an ethos of transparency. Sachs's work has been included in many exhibitions in the US and abroad, and is in the collections of the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Centre Georges Pompidou Paris, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, San Francisco Museum of Art, and the Astrup Fearnley Musée for Moderne Kunst in Oslo. Major solo exhibitions include Nash Sculpture Centre in 2017, the Brooklyn Museum, the Noguchi Museum, the Contemporary Austin in 2015, Park Avenue Armory, Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum, the Prada Fondazione Prada Milan, the Deutsche Guggenheim Berlin, and Site Santa Fe. Tom lives and works in New York. Perhaps the piece that he is best known for is the Mars Yard shoe, a collaboration with Nike which has been widely copied. The shoes are amazing, and the fact that they're called shoes and not sneakers is also something to acknowledge. The shoes come in a box which contains handwritten messages, which seem to be dedicated to each owner. Approximately 25,000 people have a pair of these wonderful shoes, and they are widely described annually as the most coveted shoe, which originally sold for $200 and now sell for anything up to $4,590, the latest price, ladies and gentlemen, on StockX. Tom thinks of his shoes as sculpture, and they were based on shoes worn by astronauts in space, and they were based on Tom's meeting with NASA scientists and designed for a mechanical engineer at the agency's Jet Propulsion Lab, who created the airbags used in Mars Explorer rover missions. As Tom says about these shoes, the main thing my shoes do is they embrace the concept of transparency. Midsoles will show filth, they have stain amplifying features. They show other people that, hey, I was here and I did something. Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Julia. After a good day.
Well, listen, I'm sure everybody's more than aware that this is 6 a.m. in New York, so you deserve a special round of applause for being here. Thank you so very much. It's really great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. Now, we can return to the Mars Yard shoe, because I did a little ode to the shoe, which is just astonishing for many, many reasons. And I want to ask you later how it relates to the rest of your work. But let's start more or less at the beginning. How are you? How is your family in these tumultuous times? It feels that there are seismic shifts taking place, not only the global impact from COVID-19, but of course, the global impact of Black Lives Matter movement and the tragic death of George Floyd recently. How are you?
Well, it's, I'm not great. This situation's overwhelming and heartbreaking. As it's been for many, many years, but this is an awakening for all of us, and change is overdue. And my place in this is it's confusing, but it's a time of self-examination. So what it's really clear needs to happen is that white people, myself included, need to educate themselves and spend time sitting with that uncertainty and learn, listen, and support the movement. So that's it. That's
Well, well said. Well said. You put much better what I would have wanted to say. So thank you for that. And I imagine it must be very strange being in New York at the moment, still in lockdown, still with COVID very present. And you have two studios. You live and work in Queens and in Soho. Do you go between the two? Or are you mostly based at the moment in one?
I mean, it's that's like a much less that's just like an annoyance right now. This it's logistics, but I'm in Queens mostly, and but we're kind of transitioning back into Soho, and that's where the team is. So kind of back and forth.
But you also have very strong links to London because you studied at the AA, the Architectural Association School of Architecture, winning the AA Furniture Prize in 1997, and you continue to make furniture before working as a fabricator in Frank Gehry's Los Angeles furniture shop, where I'd been. Who were your teachers at the AA? Did you enjoy it? And is it true that as a result of attending a lecture by our dear common friend, a friend that we both mutually have, Richard Wentworth, that you decided to stop studying architecture and change to being an artist?
Yeah, Richard was the pivot for me. I was in only really in first year, and my unit was Tom Hannigan and Carlos Villanueva Brandt. I don't know if you know those guys, but they're great guys. But it was like, and of course, you always learn from your co-students. Like Robert Mantho is a big influence on me. He's a professor at the University of Edinburgh now. And there was Tom Dixon did a class with us, and that was where I was successful at furniture for the first time, and promptly dropped out because it was like the Navy. It was like the Navy SEALs when they try and get you to quit. I felt like that's what that school was. And for good reason. I mean, we should really be tougher on our architects.
But my God, that it's 7 years. I don't know if it's the same in the US. I mean, and then when you graduate, you're designing window frames. It's not as though you're suddenly building buildings. You're doing, the doorknobs and the window frames. It's tough.
It's tough, and true sustainability issues aren't really taught, and the important things aren't really addressed in school, like planned obsolescence and the needs of the market. It's a complex thing. Frank said it best, I thought. Frank Gehry. Yeah. Best. He said architecture has been replaced with value engineering.
Indeed, how right he is.
But
so we should explain what value engineering is, which I understand having worked on the certain kinds of buildings. Basically, an architect designs a building. It's fabulous. It goes out to get costed, and everybody has a fainting fit. From that moment, everybody then tries to reduce the cost of the building, which is a fiction, because the building costs what it costs. So then they say, we're going to take away this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to change it, la, la, la. And so they reduce the budget to what it should be, what the client can afford. Then they start on site, and it goes back to exactly where it was, where it started, and everybody has another fainting fit. Am I right? Is that broadly right?
Yeah, but I mean, that's definitely one of the main trunks of the tentacles. I mean, my view is even more cynical, which is just that it's about cost per square foot, and I mean, if I'm looking across the street at a really depressing building that was just designed around the windows because there were cheaper windows, so. And there's like an ill consideration for the occupant. Yeah. And it's just about how many people can you squeeze in. Yeah.
Horrible.
And this has been going on since the beginning of time, but now with capitalism, it gets enhanced. But, this just confirmed to me that about the role of the artist in that. And that's it. After understanding that idea and working with Frank, I really stopped kind of seeing him as a architect and more as an artist who builds buildings.
Yes, and of course
look at him like that.
But his relationship with artists is incredibly strong, both to music and to the visual arts. He he's really informed by those two things. But I'm going to stop you there because I feel that we can segue into architecture and spend the next 40 minutes talking about that, which would be a pleasure, but perhaps for another time.
We will.
Indeed, I look forward to it. So going back to when you became an artist, you developed a fascination with making things out of materials that had a past life, that are not glossy and new. For example, you relish the pencil mark, the glue stain, and any object that has on it the imprint of everyday life. Why is this? And in fact, behind you, which I think is a kind of work, and it's kind of not a work, you can see the sense of history in what you use, the materials you use to make your work. So explain more.
Well, we're living in a time where things are the best made thing ever is, say, something like the iPhone, and there's no evidence a human being was there when it was made. It was hatched, miraculous, and it's a great triumph. It's kind of like a finish fetish in industry, and there's no evidence that a human was there. So I think the advantage that the artist has is his or her own individual fingerprints. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a stainless steel, polished, perfect sculpture. That's just a different way of working, and every artist has their own ways. But for me, the advantage is showing like the fingerprints. So, for example, this is my cup of coffee I just finished. I wish there was another one in here.
Yes.
This is porcelain, but I don't know how well you can see.
Pretty good.
You can see all the fingerprints, and if you look up close, you could literally see my fingerprints. You could clone me back from those fingerprints in some sci-fi device, and you can see that there was a crack on the bottom that was repaired with gold, not kintsugi, but European gold luster, because this isn't raku clay, it's English porcelain. But the idea anyway with this and everything that I make, even the scraps behind me, is that you can see the screws, because that shows, and the errors, because that's human.
Yes. To err is, oh no, that's a whole other thing. To err is human, to forgive divine. I think that's a whole other, let's not go there. Another very rich theme for discussion. Yeah. So you refer to the studio team, your studio team, as a cult. You wear uniforms, and I think you may be wearing your uniform today, so we can all see. Amazing. Do I need to be scared about the cultish reference? And if I do, why? And if I don't, why? Because cults, that's such a difficult word with a really difficult history.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple things. Everyone, we all have our own cult now, and you can measure how many people are in your cult by the number of followers on your Instagram account. So I'm part of your cult, you're part of my cult. That's in a way called like a global community and how we connect. You're even part of cults that the leaders of the cult don't know you, and vice versa. Maybe. I like the cult because I like the creepy Manson family kind of reference, but really all a cult, and it's a dirty word, but all it really means is that we're with a bunch of other people that share the same values, and those values are idiosyncratic to us. And maybe they don't fit in with a larger group, and that's why we find each other. We're a bunch of weirdos in the studio, and if you are following us, it means that you share some of those values too, or at least you're interested in them and want to learn more. The difference between our cult and all the other, not all the other, but the bad ones, is that we don't need you. We don't really want you. We're busy working. If you're interested in what we're doing, you're welcome to join us on any level, just by watching or by participating in our actions. Like you can do ISRU, which is our class that we teach online, in situ resource utilization that we continue to do, where we talk about making the most of the resources that you have in front of you. But I think it's important that, and we can dig into the cult in depth later, but the number one thing is that you're free to leave anytime, and we encourage you to find your own place where you take what you learned from us and find your own calling. That's the kind of one of the foundations of who we are.
So does size matter, therefore? Does it matter for you how many Instagram followers you have, how many people sign up to your inverted commas classes, who are part of, who share your values? I mean, and would it be that in a kind of way you had failed, and another very difficult word now, if you didn't have, I think you've got 250,000 Instagram followers, or maybe many more, perhaps I'm not quite up to date. I mean, that's a huge number. But would it be okay if you had 5,000?
Yeah, I think it's the same, right? It doesn't matter if you have 5 followers or 5,000 or 500,000. It's the same work, and it doesn't really change. I think there's, we've been working like this since before Instagram, and we'll continue after. It's a great resource to be able to share and connect, and I think it's important because I believe in the democratization of art. I might benefit from the elitism of it, but I don't like that because I don't like. You and I have talked about this. We don't come from art backgrounds, right? It's not part of our family upbringing, but it's what we've dedicated our lives to. So in a sense, there's I still think of my past self, and I think that's a good person to be talking to and thinking about. So, but it's like, I don't know, there's some, I take it seriously because it's with humility that and with respect that I appreciate the people are interested in what we're doing. So I want to respond in kind because it's responsibility.
Of course. And it's also very exciting. And so
it's fun.
What was the first object that you remember being inspired by or intrigued by, and how old were you? I mean, was it something when you were really tiny, you remember looking at an object that you were playing with, or did that come very much later?
Well, it's hard to answer on the very first object, but I want to answer about an object that I saw when I was in university. And I was at the Museum of Modern Art, and it was sort of when I first moved to New York City, and I saw Pete Mondrian's Broadway Boogie Woogie, and I was obsessed with it. And I'd seen it in books, but I got to go see it at the Museum of Modern Art, and I wanted it. I desired it the way I wanted a Ferrari or something. And I desired it as a status object that was unattainable. And so I thought, okay, if I really want that, I got to go down to Wall Street and get into banking so I can organize enough funds to access something like that. And you can do that. I mean, it's a life's work, but it can be done. Maybe not with a specific monitor, but you could. But I didn't think that was did not feel like that was an authentic use of my time. So at the same time, I was living and working in my studio now, which is near Canal Street, where they sell fake Gucci sunglasses on the street for $5. And I thought, and I would buy a pair of $5 sunglasses and wear them and lose them and not care and buy another pair. Or I'd save up and buy a pair of real ones and then lose those and be freaked out because they were so expensive and fragile. And it occurred to me that those real $500 sunglasses owned me. I did not own them. When the $5 ones had a certain degree of authenticity, they were people call them fakes. I call them dubbed versions or unauthorized because there are some virtues to those. So I went to the Museum of Modern Art a bunch more times, studied that painting, looked at it, got a look at the back of it, really obsessed. And I made my own model of it, a sculpture of it, the front and back and sides and everything. So it wasn't like a forgery, but it was a model. I used gaffer's tape. I did not use paint. I used gaffer because that's and plywood instead of canvas. So these are materials that I have a connection with from having made other sculptures. And what I realized that I built that I made my own version of it that was that I spent more time with that painting certainly than the person who bought it and had it in their house for a while before giving it to the Museum of Modern Art. I got to enjoy that painting, and by studying it, I began to possess it, and it became, the information in it became mine, and that's the most valuable thing in looking at art, is to, and you don't need to physically own it anyway.
Well, you inhabit it. I think the thing is that you become so immersed, it becomes a second skin. It's like your brother or sister. You inhabit it. There's a closeness which is beyond, and that makes it very exciting. And yes.
But can I just add one thing, because
of course,
because and by possessing it in this way and inhabiting it, to use your words, that it became part of me and my oeuvre and my way of thinking, and in a way it became a form of sympathetic magic, because through that true act of adoration and obsession and learning, that my painting of my sculpture of this painting in turn left my possession and wound up in a collection and generated funds towards future works. And I, through my adoration, got to keep working. And that's like, that strategy is something that continues to this day in everything that I do.
Now, I want to bring you to the Swiss Passport Office, which of course came to London, which was an enormous success. We had queues around the block. It was open on a 24-hour basis. And I think you said about it, well, I know you said about it, with this project, we break down the borders and limit the concept of nationality. Borders are artificial, created by governments and the corporations who control them. With the Swiss Passport Office, every man and woman may be Swiss. And of course, the Swiss logo is the best logo on the planet. I don't think there is one which is better, not even Apple. The UK had, by that time, already voted for Brexit. And we were in the middle of casting ourselves off into the ocean, into the sea as an island again. What was your, firstly, are there any plans to reconstitute that project, which is incredible? Because you really, by standing in line, by being interviewed, by getting the Swiss passport, you really think what it is to have a nationality, and also whether you really want one. And what that I mean, it's another kind of tribe thing to go back to, or another kind of sect to go back to your discussion about the studio and how it works. So are there plans for more? Will it be recast? Will it be rethought? Or do you still have in your heart Switzerland, the wonderful Swiss emblem? Well, quickly. Because we're going to run out of time in a minute.
Anyway,
I'm beginning to panic.
Yeah, so I love Switzerland, and I've been there many times, and I look forward to continuing visiting Swiss. But it does also represent, nationalism. It's growing up, it was the most status passport in the world. It's where Americans went to hide their money. It's where a lot of other people went to hide their money for. During the war and continue. And it was also this safe haven for refugees that were in my family during the war. So it has this long history of neutrality, and some of that is complicated by money and hiding resources, and it's really complicated. But also, like, no one sort of respects industry and nature simultaneously as well as the Swiss. They're just so responsible and organized, and I think there's great privilege to their geology for no other excuse that they were. It's literally an island, mountain island in Europe, politically, geologically, and stuff. So. But without getting too into the whole idea of borders, which is complicated, I would like to show it again. I think it's a question of timing and where and how. But I think that those issues continue.
Well, I mean, one of the things, the Swiss Passport Office is a massive success. The other great success, so I think about, if somebody said, okay, Julie, you quickly got to tell me, what are Tom Sachs's most, best known projects. I would say the space program, which would be great to hear you talk about now, the Swiss Passport Office, and of course the Mars Yard Shoe. But so if we move on to the space program, you created a life-size replica of the Apollo lunar excursion module from plywood and steel, saying, I want labor to be the point because everything in our lives is miraculously made with no idea how it's done. So this is really an amazing structure, and was part of a show. Where was it first shown?
Well, so the space program is interwoven in my life, and we've done several missions. The first 2007, we went to Mars at Gagosian Gallery in Beverly. I mean, so we went to the moon. Yeah. In Beverly Hills, and then in 2012 we went to Mars at the Park Avenue Armory in New York.
Fantastic. And
then in 17 we went to the icy moon of Jupiter, known as Europa, at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco. And
great.
We'll be doing our next mission in about a year in Hamburg at Dijksterhallen, and we'll be going to an asteroid for Vesta.
Wow.
Looking for resources like platinum and palladium and gold to make cell phones, because we've ran out of those resources here on Earth. But you don't go to, in reality, you don't go to other worlds because you've fucked up at your home and are looking for a new one, because it's very difficult and it's not practical ever, really. But you go to other worlds so you can better understand your resources here on Earth, and you can you can try and answer the questions that art, religion, science have been struggling with since the beginning of time, and that's, are we alone? Where do we come from? And the LEM, that the image that we're looking at now, really is we made a full-scale version of it, like a Mondrian, where I had a great privilege of studying the NASA Apollo space program, the other NASA Apollo space program, and build a highly detailed version of it. So it's like a religious object. I'll also point out, brag, that it's the only LEM, besides the ones that were sent to the moon, that stands on its own 4 feet. There are a lot of other assholes who have made their own LEMs in the backyard or for stage productions, but they all have a column going up the center holding it up. So our legs work the way the other NASA's
amazing.
Legs. So, and that's a small detail, but for geeks like me, they will understand how hard and appreciate that's about.
Thank you. Now, we also wanted to show this image and have you talk briefly about it, because I'm going to have to somehow fit in all my questions in about double tick time. So tell us quickly about this amazing object and the scale of it too, because it's very difficult to see from this image how big it is.
It's hard to see, but it's called VX1000, which is a Sony video camera from the 1990s. And again, this was an object of desire. It was very expensive at the time. I could not afford one. So I made a model of one out of plywood, and it's got every detail. I was able to acquire one, study it, and make an exact model and study each and every detail. And this was an important camera because it was the camera that sort of made skateboarding not a crime. It was the camera that, and you can see there's a handle on the top, it's sort of on the side here, and it was engineered in a way that was really friendly to hold in your hand, sort of like this, and get great shots. And what it did was, this camera and the ecstasy of communication that we live in with the internet and email, it allowed skateboarders from around the world to make videos of their tricks and send them around. First VHS, and then disc, and then email and social media and stuff. But it connected the world, the web of skateboarders around the world, and they could share it, and it elevated this art. So this symbol, which is a camera made in Japan, this innocently by the Sony Corporation became this activation for change. Very much like the cell phone is helping us see what's going on with the world, and it's helping us wake up to understand that Black Lives Matter. It's helping us see the world. Anyway, but the object is chosen for its formal qualities. This is also, to me, a Brancusi. This is a shape. It's not just any camera. It's this one for the politics, but also for the formal qualities of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen the project, the space mission, which is really of a huge scale. You can go inside it. This which is more of a handheld, both very much sculptural objects. But the other piece or object for which you are incredibly well known is, of course, the Mars Yard shoe, which I began to talk about just briefly before you came in. And it's very interesting that you talk about this as sculpture. They're something that has permeated the world far outside, the cultural world, which is incredibly important. And so how does this connect with the rest of your practice?
Well, this is a sculpture. Sure, it's a shoe, and
it's also not a sneaker. It's described as a shoe, not a sneaker.
Right. So the idea behind it is, if Air Jordans were made for Michael Jordan, this shoe is made for Tommaso Rivellini, who was at the time he's literally a rocket scientist. At the time he worked at Jet Propulsion Laboratory in the Mars Yard, and the Mars Yard is a field made of lava rock where robots are sent to test what it's like on Mars. And this is in Pasadena, California. And so I want to make a shoe that was perfect for him to walk around that Mars Yard. So it's got a lug sole, but also that same guy has to go to Washington, D.C. and sell his project and get funds. So it's for sneaking around the hallways of NASA headquarters in D.C. So it was like a general purpose, or it's for both of those purposes, the shoe. And so he was our muse and our athlete. And but the idea is that there was art in everything. And the values of the Mars Yard shoe, which are transparency and all of the materials are the natural colors that those shoes come in. So the white sole is the natural color of polyurethane, or the slightly yellow toe is the natural color of rubber or pigskin. Only the swoosh and dawning straps are artificially colored because it's advertising and information about enter here. So these, and you can see the stitches that there are all the opportunities to hide how the thing was made were removed and instead elevated so you could see what was going on. And those are the values that are in the sculptures too.
What's so nice about it is that the box is like you're writing to the person who owns those shoes. It's personal, the way you communicate with the owner of your sculpture, in this case. They feel like dedicated messages, and that's incredibly rare. And it's also a kind of a link to you, which is not usual when you buy something from, when I say the high street, what I mean by that is you buy something which is available, commercially in that way. So not in a cultural context, but more in a non-commercial, non-cultural context. And that, I think, makes them very, very special. But I also think that Nike is the only relationship you have to do projects like this, or are there other people that you're working with or want to work with?
We're approached all the time to do brand collaborations, and I'd like to kind of keep all my eggs in one basket, but look very carefully at that basket. And I think that although we're always open to other ideas, I think we're busy making sculpture. But I think that this is a great way to reach people and for the values in our sculptures to meet everyone. I mean, I know that these became really sought after and they're expensive and they're secondary market and stuff, but the intention is that they're for everyone. And that's sort of something that we're working on trying to rein back in, because the idea of a shoe is that you wear it. You don't put it on a pedestal and trade it. You wear it and wear it to death. And then if the shoe's worth it, you repair it and put new shoelaces in and slap a new sole on the bottom and keep it going, so it tells the story that's of your adventures. So those are my intentions. I know sometimes things get off track. That's where I've always been trying to go. But the idea is, again, is like I benefit from the elitism of art, but in a way it's not me. And people always ask, how do you feel about the art world and who do you make your art for? And I always say the same thing, and that's I make the artwork for me and my community or cult or whatever, and my team, which includes Tommaso Rivellini, my friend, or includes you, Julia, because I know you wear these shoes. And
yeah, I do. I'm thrilled. I mean, I put them on my Instagram when I got them. I was so proud of them.
But thanks. But the idea is that you're so like there's the studio and then the ring around it, which is your friends and people you work with, and then the ring around that is people that maybe you don't know, but in a way we all share the same values, and that's an access point.
Now, we talked briefly before, but I'm really interested to know your answer about blue ocean and red ocean. So if I may, I'm just going to explain to people, it's a fantastic description. So red oceans are the industries in existence today, the known market space. And blue oceans are the industries not in existence today, the unknown market space. What is blue ocean for you, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, so blue ocean for me is a personal, let's just start personally, is a place where the things that, because I'm a maker and that's the main thing that I do, is developing a place where the objects that we make are an expression of our values. Now you could say, okay, Tom, you're already doing that with all the things that we've talked about, but there's an opportunity to dig deeper and to make things that have greater connection with the spirit. So, and that in a way is what art has, the best stuff has always done, like religious art. But of course, organized religion doesn't really work in the same way that it used to. It's been replaced by consumerism, voyeurism, social media and stuff. But what I'm for an art that's an expression of who I am and the values that I want to be. And so if I can do that for myself and then offer you a window into how we do it, it can be kind of like and in a way that's what 10 bullets are. The 10 bullets are the values of the studio. And maybe they're not all for you, and maybe you can't observe all of the 10 bullets or 10 commandments or whatever, but at least they're a compass that can point you in the right direction. So blue ocean is, to recap, making the art have spiritual values so that they can help us learn and grow and be active in our decision making instead of passive.
Thank you. Dear Tom, thank you. Thank you for ending on such an inspirational note. Thank you for getting up so astonishingly early. Thank you for being so generous with your thoughts and ideas. And I can't wait to continue our conversation. Really, I'm very, very touched that you took the trouble to join me today. And I now have an end note, so please peel off, go back to bed.
Thank you.
No, thanks you.
Julia.
And I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to continuing.
Indeed, thank you. So you can now watch all the previous Teas with Julia on our ITD TV or YouTube channel. Tom Sachs's exhibition at Gallery Tadeusz Ropac will open in our Marais Gallery on the 14th of January next year. After a long period of closure, the London Gallery in Dover Street will reopen on Tuesday, 16 June, with a presentation of selected works from our 2020 Art Basel online viewing rooms, coinciding with the launch of this year's edition. Highlights include a new painting by George Baselitz, an early photograph by Sigmar Polke taken during his travels to Afghanistan and Pakistan, where he shot one of his most important photographic series. A monumental recent painting of this year, Memento Mori by Anselm Kiefer, and a new, never previously exhibited sculpture by Jack Pearson. In Paris, following the success of Anthony Gormley's exhibition Inhabit, on 2nd of July, we shall open an exhibition of new work by Jules de Balancourt entitled There Are More Eyes Than Leaves on the Trees in the Marais Gallery. Dimensions of Reality, Female Minimal, remains open at our gallery in Pantin. Daniel Richter's exhibition, So Long Daddy, is currently on view in Salzburg until 18 July. Please visit the gallery's website to see the show with immersive 360 degrees panoramic views. And for next week, I'm delighted to be having tea with Nikki Wilson, founder and director of Jupiter Artland, our foundation in Scotland. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you so much for joining me. Goodbye.